This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
The X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X-Zone Radio Show or endorsed in any manner by Rob McConnell, rel-mar McConnell Media Company, the X-Zone Broadcast Network, its affiliated networks, stations, employees, or advertisers.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Welcome back to the X-Zone, everyone. I am Rob McConnell, and we're coming to you from our broadcast center in beautiful Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, on the shores of Lake Ontario between Toronto and Niagara Falls, Ontario. If you would like to check us out online on all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV, our website for the radio and TV show is www.xzoneradiotv. And if you'd like to find out about the great programming we have available for you, 724, 365 on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Don't forget we have, let me see, some of the shows are Kevin Randall, A Different Perspective, Larry Lawson, Paranormal Stakeout, Dr. Bernie Beatman, Connecting with Coincidence, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, Seek Reality with Roberta Grimes, let me see, The World Beyond with Joe Wiegand, and they're just a couple of the shows that we have especially for you at www.xzbn.net. My guest this hour is a gentleman I've had the pleasure of knowing for many years. His name is Alan Slonaker, and Alan is native of the City of Richmond. He grew up in a Victorian-era home in the city's downtown. It was there that he had his first brushes with the paranormal. Alan was exposed to the city's history and lore at a very early age. That sparked a lifelong interest in history and the paranormal, which ultimately led him to join CPRI in 2007. In joining CPRI, he was thrilled to find a group that approached the study of the paranormal in such an interesting and professional manner. Alan currently serves as the regional director for Central Virginia. Alan has a Bachelor of Science degree in criminal justice from Virginia Commonwealth University with a minor courses of study in sociology and urban planning. He has spent nearly 30 years involved in the public safety field, including search and rescue, EMS, and law enforcement. Alan has spent the last 20 years as a police officer, having served as a criminal investigator, and now as a police trainer. His interests include almost anything involving history, especially World War II, collecting and reproducing sci-fi movie props and costumes, and spending as much time on his Harley Davidson as possible. Alan currently resides in Richmond, Virginia, area where he, with his very patient wife, and I can appreciate that, Monica, and two wonderful children. For more information on Alan and the CPRI, visit virginiaghost.com, and on Facebook, VACPRI. And Alan, welcome back to the X-Zone, old friend. How have you been?
Great to be here, Rob.
How many years have you been?
Well.
How many years have you been chasing the paranormal, trying to, find out what it's all about?
I have been involved for 10 years now.
Wow.
Yep.
Now, you and I were talking before we went to air, and we've got about 2 minutes before I have to take my first break, Alan. And you were telling me about some fascinating things that you and your group are doing, and the collection of new data.
Yes, sir. What we are trying to do at CPRI is kind of take paranormal investigation to the next level. You have seen over the years lots of groups, lots of individuals that are going out and they are attempting to get video, get audio, and so forth. We want to say, okay, we got audio, for example, but what else is occurring in the environment? What can we actually quantify? Because we know if we hear a sound, something is going on in the environment. There's a change. There's something we ought to be able to measure. And if we can pair that with some phenomena that we manage to capture, maybe we can show that something legitimate, something scientific is actually happening.
Sounds interesting, Alan. You and I have got to talk more about this on the other side of this break we have coming up shortly. XO Nation, Alan Slonaker is our very special guest, www.virginiaghost.com, and on Facebook, via CPRI. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Now, the July edition of the X Chronicles newspaper is available for one and all at www.xchroniclesnewspaper.com. And Alan and I will be back on the other side of this break talking more about ghost hauntings, things that go bump in the night, as well as this fascinating new information that Alan and his group are finding. X Zone, a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard, Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until 2 a.m. Eastern, right here on the X Zone Broadcast Network, iHeartRadio, the Mutual Broadcast Network, across Europe and Asia on Euro Radio TV, and, of course, on the Talkstar Radio Network. Don't go away.
This is the X Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with WWII, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365. Alan Slonaker is our special guest this hour at VirginiaGhost.com and on Facebook, via CPRI. And Alan, the findings that you and your group are collecting, I haven't heard about this before. What do you think that this is going to do to the entire paranormal field, especially when it comes to ghost hauntings and things that go bump in the night?
Well, hopefully, we would like to get some attention to what we're doing and how we're doing it. And other interested parties will hopefully start doing it the same way. So if we can get more people investigating the way that we're doing it, and obviously we're not perfect. We're always tweaking what we do and how we do it. But maybe we can kind of standardize the field and collect enough data that it starts to get the appropriate attention from the mainstream scientific community.
Why do you think, Alan, that the mainstream scientific community hasn't jumped onto the bandwagon and been of more help to the paranormal community?
That's a complicated question. It's probably a combination of a number of factors. If you go back and you look at all kinds of cultures across history, as far back as you can go, there's always been ghost lore and reports of what we now call paranormal activity. That's kind of a consistent thing in the human story. And over time, I think it's been so wrapped in myth and in legend and in pop culture that it doesn't have a lot of legitimacy in the eyes of some in the scientific field. And then, today, there's such a glut of paranormal pop culture and sensationalism that's associated with it that I think it's very easily dismissed. On the other hand, though, as we see that the scientific community starts getting increasingly into some and I'm sure you've had programming on this, just a lot of the quantum theory and multiverse and so many things that the physics community is exploring that just kind of really challenge your perceptions and it's almost sci-fi in some of what they're talking about in mainstream science. Maybe people are more open to it now, and if we can come in and show that, hey, we're not just getting a recording, we're getting data points. Maybe if we do it, enough people join in, start doing it, the field becomes more standardized, less sensational, then maybe somebody in academia will really take notice.
What do you think the biggest problem is when it comes to the different groups that are actually doing the on-site investigations? One thing I've noticed is there's very little communication between groups.
Sadly, that is true. And it is very, very hard to communicate with groups at times. And you, unfortunately, you have a lot of groups, a lot of individuals that are in this field, more for the thrill and less for the research. I mean, we just did a private residence case very recently where there was no paranormal activity at all that we could document. Right. However, a group came in ahead of us and declared that it was haunted and there were demons involved and so forth and so on. And unfortunately, the individual that we were trying to assist, did have some significant mental health challenges. And rather than helping this individual, they really poured gas on a brush fire. So that really doesn't help, and that kind of stuff doesn't advance the field.
You're a trained professional investigator. You know there's a right way of doing things and a wrong way. There's a right way of collecting evidence. There's a wrong way of collecting evidence. I've talked to I don't know how many different paranormal groups over the years, and one of the biggest problems I have discovered is that there's a very serious lack of training within the paranormal community.
Yeah, true. And really, how do you train for something like this? Mm-hmm. There's no training manual. There's no set protocols.
Right.
So what we do is we fall back to the things that we're experienced with and believe we can trust. Mm-hmm. Going to the scientific model, the scientific method, and using the experimental model. And then we try to bring people into our organization that have skill sets that can be utilized in the type of work that we're doing, whether it's people in law enforcement, and there's 2 or 3 of us at this point that are in law enforcement, people with actual trained scientific backgrounds, whether that's chemistry, physics, computer engineering. We have an MD on staff. We have people that have counseling backgrounds on staff. So those disciplines, I think, really help.
Do you think it would be an asset if there was a centralized database of evidence that had been collected over the years by all the different groups where it could be cross-referenced and checked? Just like in law enforcement, you have in the United States, you've got NCIC, and up here in Canada, we have CPIC. And I know that law enforcement, in order to solve a crime, needs to work together. There has to be the sharing of information. Why isn't the same principle applied to within the investigation of the paranormal?
Again, it's kind of a tough question to answer. I mean, I think you have a lot of organizations that are just not operating with those protocols, for one. And they are not recording data or archiving data. So that's one aspect of it. I think the other one is, you've seen a glut of, for example, paranormal pop culture, paranormal television shows. And I think people, for whatever reason, are inclined to hang on to stuff. It's kind of a vexing thing. We've talked about it amongst ourselves. Why can't we kind of generate that level of cooperation, data collection, and data sharing between organizations? But in a lot of the cases, it's just getting them to operate in that way. Now, what we have done within our organization is we have set up an RMS system, a records management system, that is not unlike what police agencies in the United States use to catalog, store reports,
right,
and make data retrievable. And I'm sure they do exactly the same thing in Canada.
Yep.
And so we have created an RMS system. So when we open a case, that case is assigned a number, and individual investigators can go in, put in their individual reports, and but all becomes part of the overall investigative report. So that includes, narratives, but also whatever technical data that we have collected as well.
What was it in your life that proved to you beyond a shadow of a doubt that the paranormal is real?
Oh, man. I had experiences growing up. The house that I grew up in had things happen in it that were, I thought, unexplained.
Right.
My late father had bought the house from the family that built it in 1898, and he experienced stuff within the house as well. And it was the activity was not regular by any stretch of the imagination. It was very, very sporadic, but it did happen, and it was footsteps. I know my father reported apparitions a couple times, but you would hear footsteps, you would hear sounds, you would hear voices occasionally. My grandparents had a place in Virginia's Northern Neck, and I saw a shadow figure there outside one time. I remember it vividly. I was probably, if I was 12 years old, I'm not even sure I was that old, but somewhere between 10 and 12. And I saw this. I looked outside this window, and it was an illuminated area near a tool shed they had. So, it wasn't dark, but it was at night. And I saw this tall, slim, just very bizarrely slim, actually, shadow figure with kind of an oversized head, and it was just standing there, and it took 2 steps towards a grove of pine trees and disappeared. And there was never any haunted reports of haunting activity in that space, that house, that neighborhood. Nothing. The thought hadn't even occurred to me to think about activity, ghosts in that area. I don't even know if I saw a ghost, but it was weird. It was weird, and I mean, as a child, I didn't even tell my grandparents or my parents when I saw it because I didn't think they'd believe me. But it was very, very strange. So I was interested in it from a young age, partially because of experiences like that. And then joining CPRI, I've had experiences since then that have really cemented for me that something is going on. Now, we say colloquially that it's a ghost, but do we even know what a ghost is? And truth be told, we don't. It's phenomena.
Yeah,
it's a manifestation of something. But I have no doubt that phenomena, those manifestations, exist.
Do you think that we're getting any closer to the discovery of who, what, when, where, and why these so-called apparitions or ghosts, what they really are?
I don't know that we're closer. I think that the mainstream scientific community has started to put out some ideas and some theories that may tie into it. I'm not nearly intelligent enough to speak on it, but when you start hearing things about multiverse theory, wormhole theory, that kind of stuff, I mean, is there a possibility that one of these other universes is somehow bumping up against ours, and that's the source of a manifestation? That time is not necessarily linear. So perhaps, and a lot of manifestations get reported like this. All
right, let's talk more about this when we come back from this news break. Alan Slonaker is our guest, virginiaghost.com, and on Facebook, VA CPRI. We'll be back on the other side of this break as we continue here in the X Zone with yours truly, Rob McConnell, from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada.
This is the X Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Alan, the fact that you're in Virginia, and Virginia is very rich in history, could this be a reason why there are so many apparitions, so many occurrences, so many ghosts and other paranormal activity that are actually happening in the area where you live and where you investigate?
Again, we don't know. We speculate that there may be the case. When you talk or when you hear reports in Virginia, so much of what gets reported is historical in nature. A lot of what would be classified as residual hauntings. And when we go to some of these locations, that would be a fair amount of what we think we're getting in there. And we're talking about manifestations that don't seem to necessarily have intelligence, almost just like watching a movie or listening to a recording of something. And so there may be some environmental factor that causes this. What it is, we can't even begin to say. But part of what we're doing as an organization is we're trying to not just collect this stuff, not just get quantifiable data, but also go back to the same locations multiple times. I mean, we have a couple locations here that we've been going to for 3 and 4 years repeatedly. And the idea is, when we go, are we going to get replication of phenomena and therefore replication of data? Can we show that the activity is consistent over time? And a lot of these historical sites have yielded that.
Really?
Yes, sir.
What has been your most frightening, if I can use that word without overstating it, the case or the investigation that you've done that had the hair on the back of your neck stick up and goosebumps all over you?
That one is a hard one to talk about.
Really?
We had a case. This was a private residence case.
Mm-hmm.
This was within the last year, where the client, and I use the word client, but we don't accept any money for what we do. But the client was dabbling, was very involved in Ouija, tarot, trying to conjure or make contact with deceased individuals. And we had been investigating this residence for about 2 years. I think we'd gone up there a total of half dozen times in that span. And the activity started, kind of poltergeist activity type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We would set up outside the house and run cameras and drop data loggers in there, and be outside. And the house would be very noisy. You get a lot of bangings, a lot of knockings, a lot of that, very pronounced. We'd had voices in the house, and we were getting some very bizarre data. For example, in one section of the house at night, we got a UV spike late at night that had you stood next to it, you would have gotten sunburn.
Wow.
That we couldn't explain. But long story short, the activity, the reports of the activity became more and more intense. I really, because I've talked so much about the scientific aspects of what we do, it starts to sound like it's going off the rails when I talk like this. But there was something there. It was what you would categorize commonly as malevolent or demonic. I had never encountered something like that before. A lot of our investigative team had not encountered that. We have a couple people that specialize in those types of cases. They are exceedingly rare, unlike what you would think if you watched a lot of TV. In 10 years, I'd never encountered anything like this. But the thing was that whatever was in the house did not appreciate us being there. We had Brad. I think he was on the show with me last time.
He was.
Growl Bat.
Oh my gosh.
We had some pretty pronounced shadow play in the house and shadow manifestations. But the thing that was most alarming is that we had investigators that had this follow them after the event, and to the point where we pulled the plug on the case. It was some of the things that happened were significant enough that it was not worth the risk to our people, and the client was pretty dead set on continuing to do what they were doing, and it was I don't know whether this is true or not, but there's a lot of stuff in the lore when you get into those kind of hauntings that, you know, talking about it gives it recognition.
Right.
So that was a profoundly disturbing case. really.
But if it's something
disturbing.
demonic or evil to the point where you, a seasoned investigator, does not want to pursue the identity, did you call in a member of the clergy, or did you just wipe your hands clean and walk away?
The client involved in this matter, the only thing that they subscribed to was Wicca, and we did try to put this client in touch with a local Wiccan group, and they spoke with the client, and they decided that it was too dangerous for them to be involved.
Wow.
But, you know, if you, for example, the Catholic Church will get involved in these situations, but they have a very pronounced and somewhat lengthy vetting process.
Yes, they do. Yeah.
As they should.
Yeah.
As they should, to try to rule out medical issues, psychological issues, outright fraud. But they will get involved. But it also, those situations also require the active involvement of the person experiencing it, the person who is the subject of it. They have to want something to change, and they have to be willing to change. And if they're not, there's not but so much you can do for these folks.
Yeah. Do you think that the television shows that are supposed to be reality TV are an asset or a detriment to true paranormal investigating?
I think that they are an asset insofar as it gets the public interested in the phenomena, and I think that's about as far as it goes. Beyond that, I think it has tended to sensationalize and misrepresent the phenomena and paranormal investigations in general. I'll be honest, I don't watch a lot of it.
Yeah.
I just don't. There's some that I watch kind of like, and it tends to be more of the just tell me a story kind of programming rather than reality-based programming. You know, I have seen some good reality-based programming,
right.
I think, but a lot of it's very sensational, and it misrepresents the field at times. And, you know, again, I've seen some good stuff, and for every bit of good stuff I've seen, I've seen a lot more stuff that really gives me some pause. But you know, it does bring attention to it. I just don't know if it's always good. It also kind of perpetuates this idea that, you know, every time you go out, something's going to happen. It's going to be really, really cool. And, you know, you go out and things do happen, and once in a while something just really, really cool happens. But not nearly that often. And some of the things, like we find, I mentioned that UV data, UV spike in that house, that's not something that we experienced. That's something we recorded via our data loggers, because we're dropping data loggers that are measuring these different things, whether it's UV, ionizing radiation, temperature, humidity, We drop accelerometers for movement, vibration, that kind of thing. So you may not actually experience something, but you're like, wow, what the heck is this crazy data spike on here that just shouldn't be? So sometimes the stuff that you get, you don't necessarily directly experience, and I think shows make it look like something's going to happen all the time.
Prior to commencing an investigation, do you do a background inquiry on the people who are claiming to have the experience?
We don't do a background in the sense that, say, a law enforcement or agency or a security business would do a background. But we are going in, we meet with a client. We talk to them extensively. We try to gather as much information as we possibly can about them, lifestyle, practices, try to determine if there's medical issues or psychological issues, issues with the home itself that could be causing manifestations. Yep. I mean, we know that excessive exposure to EMF can trigger hallucinations or that feeling of being watched. And so you could have some really bad wiring in a house with no ghost at all.
You and I have to take our final break. Alan, please stand by. Great having you back on the show. Please give my very best to the other members of the Virginia Ghosts and Virginia CPRI, a great group of people, Exo Nation. And if you'd like more information, www.virginiaghost.com, and on Facebook, VACPRI. And Alan and I will be back as we wrap up this hour here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, on the other side of these short breaks. Don't go away.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with WWII, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365. Welcome back, everyone. Alan Slonaker is our special guest this hour. He is with VirginiaGhosts.com, and their Facebook page is VACPRI. Listen, we started the hour talking about the ionization data that you're collecting, and I'd love to get back into it because this is truly not only very interesting, but it's also very fascinating.
Yeah. So I talked a little bit about the fact that very heavily to collect quantifiable data. So when we go in, we are putting the loggers all over a location, and stuff is off the shelf equipment. You can easily buy via Amazon or any other retailer. We're trying to track temperature, humidity, barometric pressure, geometric field, the 3 different axes. We use the accelerometers for vibration, UV, visible light, and ionizing radiation. And so, again, if something happens, are we getting a change in these points? Something else that we've noticed, and started to see such a correlation that we stopped tracking it before we go to an investigation and start looking at it afterwards, so tainting ourselves. But satellite. And it goes up and down in intensity. And the one that we're looking at is above the eastern seaboard of the United States. I think that as it starts to go down, that's when activity is occurring. As it bottoms out and creeps up, activity levels off. As it goes down again, that's when we're having manifestations. And it's happened time and time and time again. So we're showing a correlation. Now, causation, we have no idea. Correlation, something's going on. Same thing with radiation. If you look at a place like Central Virginia, consistently we're at about 12 counts per minute on a Geiger counter. Now you go to someplace like a big city, Brad used the example of like Philadelphia, and you could have a background radiation of about 30 counts per minute. We're finding that if we have a manifestation, see like an EVP or an audible sound. You know, we had a case, for example, near us in Petersburg where we had whistling, very clear whistling, like somebody walking and whistling a tune, but no footsteps and nothing to be seen. We're finding in a manifestation like that, no more than 6 feet out from that manifestation, and assuming that, God willing, we have a data logger in that vicinity, we're seeing a spike in ionizing radiation. Now, 100 counts per minute is danger level, and we have seen counts as high as 50.
Wow.
Why that is, we have no explanation. But a spike significantly above whatever the area's background is in ionizing radiation at the time of a manifestation is something that we are starting to consistently see. We've started looking at it. We noticed it. We started, trying to utilize Geiger counters more and more. And we're seeing this. Why? We have no idea. But an increase in ionizing radiation is somehow associated with manifestations.
With all this data that you've collected, why wouldn't you go to your local university and talk to somebody in the physics department and say, hey, listen, this is what we're doing. This is what we're finding. Here's the data. We're not making this up, for God's sake. We need help.
We have had some contacts with a university in our area, and I don't know that I'm in liberty to discuss it in great detail. But we haven't generated that level of interest as yet.
Wow.
And I'm, I think in that particular case, it's because they are concentrating on some other areas of research.
Okay.
And they're a very, very small department within a larger institution. But I still think you have that stigma associated with it. And, the opportunity to do shows like yours or any other way that we can get our information out.
Right.
And hopefully somebody in your audience hears it and goes, hey, I want to get on board with the way they're doing things, and maybe we can share back and forth.
Well, there is a gentleman that, if you don't mind, I'm going to send a link to this to our interview. His name is Dr. Albert Taylor, and he's one of the NASA scientists that worked on the space station and some other great things. Now he's involved in investigating the paranormal.
That would be great.
So, if you don't mind, I'd like to get you guys connected, because I really think that the more people that we have looking at it through a credible microscope and through credible research, this is what I think the missing link is in the entire paranormal field, whether it's the cryptozoology, ufology, cryptids, whatever. There is no set pattern and no established way of doing it the right way. And and I know, as being cops, there are so many ways to fluff an investigation. But if you stick to the tried and true method of investigation, reporting, maintaining the chain of custody of evidence, and sharing information with other agencies, you will solve that crime.
Right. And I don't profess to be a scientist. I'm an experienced investigator.
Yeah.
In the paranormal and in my professional life.
Yeah.
But I'm not a scientist. I don't have a PhD. I would love it if some PhDs came along and took it and ran with it.
Yeah,
that much smarter than me.
But you see, even in police work, you and I were I was an investigator. We had the forensic guys, the lab guys who are the scientists. We didn't do everything ourselves. There were experts, and I think we need to get these experts on board with us so that when you come up with evidence like you're collecting and you bring it to the scientists and the experts, they can work with you to come to a conclusion one way or another.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I as an investigator, I can collect information.
Yep.
And I can perhaps show correlation, and I need somebody like that to show causation.
Yep.
And we have some brilliant minds in our organization. I don't profess to be one of them, but we have some really brilliant, very skilled, nicely credentialed people. But we need more.
Yeah.
We need more to maybe start cracking causation.
More professionalism and less sensationalism.
Yes.
Yeah, because I've heard stories of so-called investigators going into houses, yelling at spirits, being rude not only to the spirits but to the people whose home they're in, and they walk in as if they're all this plus much more, and all they're doing is they're putting a lot of tainting onto the field that already is undergoing a lot of public scrutiny. Right.
And the more professional you are, the better. I mean, that's always, I think that's with anything. And I like to think that our professionalism, how we do what we do, has been what has allowed us to get into a lot of places that we have a lot of folks into to do this kind of stuff.
Yeah. It's an interesting field that you're investigating, and are there new and better pieces of equipment that are being manufactured and created for the paranormal world?
Specifically for the paranormal, no.
Yeah.
I don't think there are. I mean, I think you have to know what you're looking for before you generate a piece of equipment. Again, most of what we're using is off-the-shelf stuff. I mean, we go into a location, we'll drop as many as a couple dozen DVR cameras or more. We will run live audio throughout and record throughout. We'll drop extra recorders around, and then we go through with the data loggers. And we're trying to cover an area with as much recording equipment, including the data loggers, as we possibly can. But but it's all off the shelf stuff. It's all readily accessible, and most of the data loggers are plug and play type things that you can put into your computer, and you can look at a graph of what you recorded over a period of time, so you can see where your spikes are, for example, and you can match that to say a piece of audio that you collected.
Hey, listen, Alan, as always, whenever you're on, time goes by so fast. Thank you ever so much for coming on the show. Always a great pleasure. Keep the great work up, my friend, and please give my very best to the other members of CPRI. You guys are an asset to the community.
Thank you so much, Rob. I greatly appreciate it.
You take care of yourself, my friend, and I look forward to the next time you and I meet here in the X Zone. Until then, be safe, be well, and my regards to everyone down there. X Zone Nation, Alan Slonaker has been my guest, www.virginiaghost.com, and on Facebook, VACPRI. I'll be back. Don't go away.